I started this Skill Savvy DIY around 2 to 3 months ago. And one thing that I've been thinking of incorporating into this channel from the get-go is a welding machine, because that's primarily one of my main trades that I've done for many years, between that, pipe welder and pipe fitter. But I want one. It's been a while since I've welded. I retired 2.5 years ago, so I went to looking. I looked at every brand known to man. I already knew that your big brands like Miller and even Lincoln was off the table. They're just too expensive. I'm not willing to spend that kind of money for a garage machine. I just need something that'll weld, but weld good. I don't want a piece of junk. I want something that's going to hold up, that's going to be there, and something that can weld aluminum also. So I got to look, and I pretty much had my mind made up with the price point. I was trying to keep it around $1,000, but I noticed the Harbor Freight had the Vulcan Pro Tig 205, and that I think run $11.99. It's over what I was wanting to spend, but it really fit what I was looking for. And I almost pulled the trigger on that until I decided to look into PrimeWeld. I had seen a few videos in my feed, but I hadn't watched them. And I'm glad I watched them. And let me tell you, that's what's sitting here beside me. And I'm going to explain to you what sold me on this weld machine and why I went with this one over all the other ones, all the other choices out there. All right, here it is. It's a good looking machine, and I didn't really want to show an unboxing, but here is some footage from where I unboxed this, and let me tell you, it was boxed very well. It actually was encased inside of a high density foam clamshell, and everything was organized just right. And I'll show you all the things that come with it and such as that. But what really sold me on this, or a couple of things actually sold me on it, but one thing was on the Vulcan Pro Tig, it has a digital window where you have to go through a menu to get to all your different settings. And this one here, man, bam, you just got a lot of knobs here. So at one glance, I can see exactly how this machine is set up. Now this will run DC or AC. Here is your AC frequency, and here is your AC balance for cleaning. And that's something older machines just didn't have. Back in the day when we welded aluminum, everything had to be welded at 60 hertz. This one will go all the way up to 200 hertz, from 60 to 200. You can weld stick without any kind of remotes or controls or anything like that, but on TIG, currently I have a foot controller hooked up, but it also has a finger trigger. Now with a finger trigger, you would set this to 4T to get the most benefit. You can run it at 2T, it's just strictly on off. But using a finger controller, I would use the 4T, and the reason being that engages these functions here, upslope. Let's say I had it set at 100 amps. Well, I can start the current way lower. I can dial it in here where I want to start, and over a few seconds it will go from this current up to the main current. Now where that's real beneficial is on your down slope when you're coming out. You can also set your current where you want your down slope. You can turn it all the way down to where you're pulling out real gently, not leaving any craters, pinholes, or anything like that. Now with a foot controller, you actually use this on 2T because you can control your slope with your foot pedal in, out, however you want to do that. That's a no-brainer there. Another function this machine has is a pulse function. If you're welding on some thin material, you can set this pulse up, and there's all kind of variables in there. You can set it up to where you're not overheating your material, and you're able to control that weld. And we might play around with that here in a little bit on some razor blades, possibly. One thing that I forgot to show you on this is pre-flow and post-flow, meaning when you hit your pedal to initiate the arc, the argon will actually flow. Depending on where you have the second set, it will begin to flow before the high frequency starts to arc. And also in the post flow, after you terminate the arc, then it will continue to flow for however many seconds, up to 15 seconds. And that's really beneficial when welding with stainless, but you want to use it at least, I go at least 5 seconds, even on things where it don't matter, like aluminum, for instance, and the reason being that's what helps protect your tungsten. That tungsten is cherry red, and you don't want to just stop that gas flow all of a sudden. It will get black and oxidized, and it's going to trash up your welds. Let it cool with that argon blowing over it, and you're going to be a lot better shape. So it does have that function as well. Now I'll show you the other things that came with this here in just a moment, but first let me tell you the main reason why I picked this one over the others. So the reason I went with this machine over the Vulcan Pro Tig is the warranty. Now it's my understanding that Vulcan only has like a 90-day warranty, whereas this one has a 3-year full warranty. And plus it's got shipping both ways. They'll pay if I need to ship it to them, or if they have to ship it back. All of that's covered. That's a strong warranty. That's better than even what a lot of your big brands will do. Not the warranty part, but the shipping back and forth and everything. That usually falls on the owner, you know. So I thought that was really good, that if a company believes in their product enough to stand behind it to that extent, then it must be a good machine, because they would go broke if they had a lot of issues with this. So that's my way of thinking anyway. And this owner's manual here gives you a phone number right there on the front. Gives you the phone number. Now I don't sit on this manual, but I heard on one of the videos they got 24/7 helpline, and I actually called that number because when I got this package in, I did not find any kind of warranty card or any information about the warranty. So I called that number. The man answered, and I said, yeah. I said, what about the warranty? I don't see a warranty card, no instructions to call, or whatever. He goes, all you need to know is what day you bought it, like that. So I bought it off of Amazon. He looked it up. He goes, yep, there you are right there. He said, you're good. You're golden. You're good to go. So what I done is I took the emails from Amazon, and there's the total price, $929. That's with shipping and everything. But I printed those off. It's got the date it was delivered. And in the event, hopefully I'll never have to use it, but in the event I ever do, I got the information right there, and it stays with the manual. Now this manual is something altogether, man. This is a really good manual. It's got all color pictures in it. This thing reads more like a well-written welding handbook, and it tells you everything, how to set up everything about this machine. If you don't fully understand a lot of these settings, here you go. So it'd probably be easier for me just to walk around to show you what comes with this. And by the way, this machine fits perfectly on this Vulcan welding stand here. I got that at Harbor Freight. But here's the foot controller. I've already gotten it dirty, as you can see. But that's your foot controller. That's a good design there. There is my stick whip with a stinger. Suits all my needs. And the sweet part of this is it comes with a CK Worldwide TIG torch. Now these consumables I added, that's got the gas lens with a jumbo cup, and but it does come with some consumables. Very lightweight, very flexible. I just rolled up my slack here. It's got the Den style connectors. There's the ground. And speaking of the ground, there it is there. It is a 300 amp ground. It's got the copper braid. It should suit all of my needs. I hear other people really putting that down. I don't see no problem with it. You know, if it goes out, buy a new one. Now it comes with this flow meter. There's my argon. It's got a crimped end here on this argon hose that it's supplied with, and it goes in, let me see if I can get you a shot here. It goes into the back of the machine right there. Now while you're looking, you notice that 120 volt plug. PrimeWeld also makes a water cooler. If you wanted to get a water cooled TIG torch and run a water cooler, then you could use that power source right there. So another thing that this came with is this finger switch here I was talking about earlier. Let me take it out of this bag and you can see it. It's pretty long. It's probably longer than a whip, but this would actually strap down to your TIG torch. There's your switch right here. You click that in and that starts your upslope, and then you just let off of it and you're welding at that amperage. When you hit it again, that will start your down slope and you pull out of it. I'm actually more used to that setup than I am a foot controller. Foot controllers is for like shop work and things like that. And even in the shop that we had at the shipyard, we had finger controls on all the TIG torches. We didn't have foot controllers. And we also used them on the ship, the finger controls. These that we had were rheostats. And I hope they actually come out with one for this machine at some time. You turn it on, you roll your switch, it goes from right to left, and it's right there on your hand, on your TIG torch. You flip it on, the more you roll it, the hotter it gets, up to wherever you got your machine set. And I'm very comfortable with that setup. Would love to see that at some point. I watched a lot of those review videos, and everybody's unboxing this PrimeWeld, and everybody's got something bad to say about that little welding shield they send. And I'm gonna tell you, I've got nothing bad to say about it, because I'll tell you what it's really for. It's for like welding instructors, where they can walk up to their students and see what they're doing without having to walk around with a heavy hood all day. They can just walk down the aisle, check on all the welders. And my younger son, he's in his 40s. He wants me to teach him how to TIG weld. He already is a stick welder. He's a ship fitter at the same shipyard I retired from. So when he comes over here, he can watch me through this. Then we can take turns, which he's got a hood. I'm sure he'll bring it, but I can sit there and watch him without having to put on the hood and everything. So no, I'm not going to put it down at all. And so, you know, this machine is 120 volts or 240 volts. You get its full potential at 240 volts. That's what I'm running it on here. But when I first got this machine, I didn't have 240 volts in here. I had to run that myself from my panel all the way into here. And thankfully, a good friend of mine hooked me up with some cable, some 4/0 and 4 gauge instead of 6 gauge. The book recommends or says it needs a 50 amp breaker, and that's what I did. I installed a new 50 amp breaker, a 50 amp welding plug, but it's got 4 gauge wire in between them, which is rated much higher than 50 amps, which is a good thing. You can always go over, you just can't go under. And this thing is running cool as a cucumber. Them wires don't even remotely get warm. I mean, they're cool to the touch. I had this thing at like 175 amps yesterday on some 1/2 inch plate. No problem whatsoever. So that's really doing your machine a favor if you up that wire. It's not necessary. 6 gauge would have been sufficient enough to run this machine, but I'm glad I got the 4 gauge. Thank you, Rob, for the wires, all I can say. That saved me about 300 bucks. But I did run it. I ran a 7018, some cheap 7018s that I picked up at Harbor Freight, and it welded good at 120 volts. It welded real good. Now they do require a 30 amp breaker on 120 volts, and unless you run a dedicated circuit, you're not going to find it, because most homes either have 20 amp circuits or 15 amp. So you would have to run a dedicated circuit one way or the other. So I went ahead and ran 240 volts, but it does weld really good at 120 volts, so you know. For aluminum, I like to change my consumables out. That tungsten is a 2% thoriated, which doesn't work as good or well with aluminum. So what I like to go with on this is a 332 collet and collet body. I will have to change this gasket out to this one right here. I'm using a number 5 cup. This is really all you need for aluminum. It's going to lighten the torch as well, because aluminum, I pretty much freehand that. Now I'm going to go ahead and grind the tungsten that I need, and I'm using a 2% serrated tungsten for this aluminum. It's got the gray band on it. Like I said, this is a red tip. The tip's been ground off, but that is a 2% thoriated, and that doesn't do as well for aluminum. Even though we used to use it with the old transformer machines, you would have to ball that tip up, and they did all right, you know. But nowadays with this inverted technology, everything's changed. You can use a point, or if nothing else, just barely blunt your end. All right, I'm just going to try to fuse a tack right here on these two corners. Make sure I got this good and straight. There's our first tack. And our second tack. Well, Harbor Freight table working out pretty good. I did a review on that if you care to watch it. All right, I want to get this comfortable. This is a flex head on this torque, so you know. Just get it to where you got your angle right, and you can work it right on down. Now the TIG wire that I'm using is a 5356 aluminum 3/32. Now I do have acetone. What I did, you might see it there, I took a wire brush, stainless steel wire brush. You brush in one direction to get all that oxide knocked off. Then I like to go over it with acetone, but I'm just going to forego that because this is brand new aluminum. It's pretty clean. So we're going to go ahead and fire up. Let me see if I can get this phone set up and get you some art shots of this, possibly. I got my amps dialed in at about 120, 121, 122, somewhere in there. I am using a foot pedal. And hopefully I got a decent ground through this table. We're fixing to find out. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm serious. I have not welded aluminum since 1995. We used to weld quite a bit of it at the shipyard when they built aluminum superstructures on the Navy ship, the CG ships. A lot of the pipe that ran through there was aluminum. So I had to certify on it way back then. And I never touched it again because they got away from the aluminum superstructure and went to an all steel superstructure. And that was it for aluminum. Just very few instances would you ever use it. All right. Well, that's all the welding we're going to do today. I'm going to shut this thing off and I'll be right back. You know, when I retired about 2.5 years ago, right at 2.5 years ago, I thought that was it for me. I would never weld again. I thought them days were over with after like 45 years. And I'll be honest with you, what got me to wanting this machine was strictly missing it. I miss working with my hands. And you can tell from this channel that I have learned a lot of different things in my lifetime, not just welding. And I'm going to hit and touch on all of those as we go. But if you're interested in seeing projects that I might do using this weld machine, just let me know in the comments. If it's not your thing, then hey, I won't do that much of it. I don't want it to take over. I really want this to be, you know, one size fits all. I want this to cover a lot of different genres out there in the blue collar world. But I had to get a machine for this channel, and not just for that, gives me something to do. This sitting on my butt and doing absolutely nothing will kill you. And I did. I was really missing it, and I think I made a good choice with this. If a company is willing to warranty something for 3 full years, full warranty, cover all costs and shipping, they must know what they got. They, you know, if they're willing to stand behind that, where a lot of the other ones only stand behind it 90 days. And this has got the same warranty as your really expensive welders, you know, and I'm not even sure that they cover shipping to and fro. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you got something from it. And like I said, if you want to see more of it, let me know in the comments. I'm Russ Jones with Skill Savvy DIY.